Hello and welcome back to my channel. In this video, I will be making a reversible bucket hat. I got a free pattern from the website of Spoonflower, which makes customized fabrics, and they have a pattern for a reversible bucket hat. So I downloaded the pattern, printed it out, and cut out the pieces. One thing to note with this pattern is the seam allowance is not included in the pieces, so I had to include a ½ inch seam allowance around each of the pieces before I cut the pieces from the fabric. This pattern is pretty simple. There's only 3 pieces and you only need to cut 5 total pieces, 2 of the crown piece, 2 of the brim, and 1 of the top of the hat. For the reversible piece, I decided to make one side all from the same fabric, and the other side I decided to use some of the African print fabric and some of plain black cotton fabric. After I cut out all my pieces, I began to put them together. First, I put the 2 crown pieces together, front sides, the right sides to right sides, pinned them at the sides, and sewed them along the side, each side. After I sewed them, I also ironed flat the seam and sewed down each side of the seam. The pattern instructions suggested that we do that both for stability as well as for aesthetic reasons. Then I took the crown pieces and pinned them to the very top piece of the hat. Again, right sides to right sides, matching the notches. Once I pinned them all around and tried to make sure the fabric was as flat as possible all around, I took them to the sewing machine and carefully sewed around the round seam. I don't think I fully learned my lesson from when I made the broad top, but I need to remember when I'm doing round seams, I need to make sure I match up the actual seam allowance instead of the edges of the fabric. I think that would ensure that I don't have any bunching or any pleats, accidental pleats in the seam, and it'll look really smooth. But I just took my time sewing around the seam of this piece, and I think this side turned out pretty good. There was maybe one place where there was an accidental seam. So after I sewed that all around, I ironed down the seam, and then I took it back to the sewing machine and I sewed again down the seam, both to strengthen the seam as well as for aesthetic reasons. That part was finished. Then I took the 2 brim pieces, put them right sides together, pinned them at the edges, and sewed exactly the same way that I sewed the crown pieces together. I then took the brim piece and pinned it to the crown piece, again matching the seams as well as the notches. Once that's pinned down, again, I take it to the sewing machine and sew all the way around. And again, I press down flat the seam in order to take it to the machine and sew down the seam. Now that I finished the first part of the hat, I'm going to do the same thing for the reverse side. And I'm going to take both pieces, match them as closely to the seams as possible, putting right sides together, and clip the edges. I took that to the sewing machine and sewed all the way around using, again, a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and I left about a 2 or 3 inch gap so I could turn the hat inside out. If you all are enjoying this video, please take a moment to like the video as well as to subscribe to my channel for more videos such as this. Once I turn the hat inside out, I try to poke out the seam at the brim with a pin just to get the round edges poked out as much as possible. I should have notched the seam before I turn it inside out, but maybe I'll do that with the next hat. Then I take the iron and I press that as flat as possible, including the opening. Folded it in and ironed it so I can take it to the machine, and I'm just going to sew that seam closed, and I decided to just go all the way around the whole hat. So just to add to the seam look of the hat, I sewed all the way around, and this is how it turned out. I got my brother to model the hat because he's a natural model, and I think it looks really good. I think the sizing could be a little better in terms of the width of the hat. It's a little loose, but I'm really excited. I'm excited to try more patterns for a bucket hat. Let me know, what do you think about this hat? Thanks for watching.